chunk shot, chunk shot, chunk shot. Are you tired of watching your divot travel further than the golf ball? Well, you've come to the right place, because today we're talking about three reasons you could be chunking your irons, but more importantly, I'm going to give you 3 ways to fix it. I'm PGA teaching professional Todd Kolb, Director of Instruction for ES Golf TV and the Sanford Power Golf Academy. And we all have seen this shot, right? You feel like, hey, this is going to be a quality shot. You come down, the club hits the ground, and you look up, and there's this big, huge piece of turf traveling down the fairway, and the ball's only gone a couple of feet. Well, why is that happening? Well, there are a couple reasons it could be happening. We're going to talk about that. Now, before we dive into that, be sure to subscribe to our channel. If you haven't already, we got some great content coming out every week that is helping people play better golf all over the world. And most importantly, be sure to comment. If you got a question on your irons, or maybe why you're chunking it, or maybe even got a suggestion that's worked for you, please share it, because we do our best to comment. We love helping our fellow golfers. So 3 reasons you could be chunking your irons. Now let's dive right into that. First of all, we know that in order to hit a good quality iron shot, we got to be hitting down on the golf ball. We've talked about that. We've covered that in some of our previous videos. So, but the key is you got to hit the ball first. You got to hit ball and then ground. So how can we do that? Well, the most common mistake, the easiest one to fix, is just simply ball position. A lot of people, a lot of amateur golfers, this could be you, simply chunk their irons because the ball is too far forward in their stance. So where should it be? Well, here's what I like. I like the ball position for the irons to be basically in the center of the stance. Now, that's going to vary a little bit if we dive into the details, you know, for a wedge versus a 6-iron, but for most practical purposes, you want the ball basically in the center of your stance or slightly forward. So how can you find that? Well, if I'm set in here and I put my feet together, notice how I've got the ball right here. Golfers, notice how I got the ball right in the center. If I just take my lead foot and move it towards the target, and then I move my trail foot away from the target about equal distance, the ball is going to be pretty close to the center of my stance. Now, if you're topping it, you could have the ball way too far forward like this, and you're making this good golf swing, but you're just simply hitting the ground too far back behind the ball. So by simply getting our feet together, separate and separate, now the ball is more in the center of my stance, or just ever so slightly forward of center, which will allow me to hit slightly down on the ball and catch the ball first. So that would be suggestion number 1, is check your ball position. Now, tip number 2, all right, tip number 2 in terms of why we might be chunking our irons is weight shift. Weight shift. I like to call it pressure shift. We've done some great videos actually on weight shift. If you haven't already, I would certainly check those out. We've dived pretty deep because it's a big topic that I like to cover when I'm coaching my students, because we get some great results. So weight shift. Well, here's what you want to know. The bottom of your swing, or where you hit the ground, is primarily going to follow where the weight is at on your feet. So let me describe that. Let me give you some visual. So when I'm set in here, right? Now you know this already, okay? You know this already in this setup. I like a little bit more weight on the lead foot because we talk about unweighting. And at any rate, that's a separate video. We've done some great stuff. So we start a little left. So when I swing the club, if I get most of my weight on my right foot here at the top of my backswing, if my weight stays here, the bottom of my swing, all things being equal, is going to stay back here. If I get my weight going forward, the bottom of the swing goes forward. So what you need to understand is where you hit the ground, in a lot of regards, matches where the weight or balance is on your feet. So if the weight's on the back foot, the bottom of the swing is going to work back. If the weight's on the front foot, the bottom of the swing is going to move forward. So you could simply be chunking the golf ball because at impact, your weight's on your back foot. Your back here. That's probably one of the most common things I see. That's why I put it in there as number 2, because I see it all the time. So they're too far back this way. So that would be the number 2 thing. So we talked about ball position, and we talk about a little bit of the weight shift. Now the third one I want to talk about, and I don't want to say this one is controversial, because it's not controversial. It's something that I strongly believe in, but you don't hear it talked about a lot. Okay, and that is the angle of the club shaft. All right, so I don't want to, if we don't dive too deep here, but basically what you need to know is that the more the club is forward this way, see how it's leaning forward? When the club hits the ground, it's going to tend to dig a little bit. Now we did a full video on chipping exactly on this, almost 2 million views, crazy. You should check it out, where we talk about using the bounce, which is a little bit beyond this conversation right now. But what you need to know is that when the club shaft gets too far forward, okay, the leading edge tends to dig into the ground. So you might be doing everything correct, but if your hands are too far forward, the club is just digging too far down into the ground, and therefore you're taking too big of a divot. So in the setup, it might be looking like this. You're set in there, right? And you got your hands way forward. Somebody said, hey, get your hands forward, you know, and so you're sitting like this. Well, from this position, even if I make a great golf swing, when that club hits the ground, it's going to tend to dig. All right, so what should do, or what should the suggestion be? Well, when you're set in there, just make sure at the butt end of the club here points at your belt buckle. That's a good reference point. So notice the butt end of the club right here is pointing at my belt buckle. It's not pointing over here at the front of my left pocket, all right? So that would be the third reason why I see a lot of people chunk the golf balls. They simply have their hands too far forward. So next time we go to the golf course, here's what you're gonna do. It's pretty simple, right? And this is gonna guarantee we hit some quality golf shots. Number one is we're just gonna get our feet together. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and separate and separate. All right, we got the club pointing right here at the belt buckle. And the key is when you finish your swing, this is what I want you to take to the first tee, is when you finish the swing, make sure your weight is forward. Notice my weight's forward, and get your knees touching. If your knees touch, that means your weight is going forward. So there's no reason to be chunking the golf ball. If you are, it could be one of these three things. Hopefully this tip helps you. Hopefully you like it. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to leave a comment and be sure to check back because we've got great content coming out each and every week.